It's a special schus that I've been invited by Rabbi Krohn and Rabbi Shem Tov to come to speak to all of you. I know some of you were at the session last night. I recognize you, right? Okay, and some others I'll recognize. And to be with Yachad is something very, very special. As we spoke last night, Yachad means a community. Everybody is united as one. And I understand that in the last couple of weeks that we've heard some terrible news about some people, especially children, that are not well. So I just want to dedicate that everything that we say today, talking about mothers and accomplishing for Klal Yisrael, should be a schus for the Refuah Shlema for all those that need it. It's hard to believe, but in a few weeks, it's going to be the holiday of Pesach. And as I was telling them last night, I'm writing a Haggadah. It's just finished last week. It's going to be out with Hashem before Purim. They want to make sure that everybody can get many, many copies. And part of the Haggadah talks about the four sons. And it's very interesting that the fourth son, Shenei Yedea Lishol, who doesn't even know what to ask. He doesn't even know what to ask. We have the Chacham, the Rasha, the Tam, and the Eni Yodea Lishol. So it says At B'Sachlai. At. We don't find that word in the Haggadah. At means you, but it's Loshen Nekeva. It's the woman that's all of a sudden talking. Usually the whole Haggadah is Loshen Zohar in the male. And over here, suddenly, it's in the female. So why is over here, why is it changed? So there are two answers. One has nothing to do with why it has to do with the female. That's the second answer, which we're going to talk about. But the first one is very interesting. Ad, the first letter in the Torah is Aleph. The last letter in the Torah is Tav. That's the last letter in the Jewish alphabet. So when you have a child who doesn't even know what to ask, you've got to tell him everything. From Aleph to Tav. From beginning to end. And that's why some of the Mefarshim say something so interesting. Bereshis bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created, what did he create? S, from Aleph to Tav. He created everything. In the beginning, Hashem created everything. That's the beginning of creation. And that's why in the Torah it says Bereshis bara Elokim, and then it says the word S, which again is Aleph to Tav. But the reason that I want to explain to you is that I believe that the reason that when it deals with a child who needs special attention, She'eni Yodea Lishol, he doesn't know what to ask. It's the mother who's always there. The mother is the one that spends the time with the child who needs it most. Sometimes the fathers are not even around to be found. But certainly the mothers spend more time with those children that need special attention. And that's why the Haggadah is telling us, the She'eni Yodea Lishol, that child that needs such special attention, he doesn't even know what to ask. It's the mother. Now, it's very interesting that the Torah tells us that when Chava, the first woman, was created, right? And then Adam gave her the name. He gave her the name Chava. The pasuk is in Bereshis Gimel pasuk Chav. It says, Kihi hoita ein kol chai. She was the mother of all living beings. Ein kol chai. So the Ksaf Sofer asked a question. We don't find any place that Adam was called Av kol chai, the father of all living. Why is the mother, Chava, she is ein kol chai, but why is the father not Av kol chai? If she was the first mother of all the children that were ever born, so he was the father of all the children that were ever born. And the Ksaf Sofer gives us a very, very interesting answer. And he says like this. We know that after Adam and Chava, they sinned, they ate from the Eitz Hadas. Hashem was very angry, and he cursed the Nachash, he cursed the snake, and then he cursed Chava, and he cursed Adam. But listen to what he said to Chava. He said, Elo Isha Oma, and to the woman he said, Bereshit Gimel pasuk Zayin, Harbe Arbe Etzvoinik, I'm going to increase your suffering. What suffering? What suffering did she now have that she wasn't going to have before? And Rashi tells us, Zed Tsar Gidul Bonim. That's the pain of raising children. And listen what the Ksav Sefer writes. It's amazing. He says, before the Avera, there was no problem raising kids. You didn't need psychologists, you didn't need therapists, you didn't need all these things for children. They were nachas machines. They're perfect. And then he writes, a father and a mother, they were equal partners. The woman wasn't more aim kol, and he wasn't alcohol. They were both the same. There was nothing different. Oh, but never. Once they did the Avirah, then Hashem said, that she's going to have more pain. And what's that pain in raising children? So now she had a job. And listen to the job that she had. She gave birth and gave life to that child. She made him feel special. She made him feel beautiful. And that's the role of all of you. All of you mothers in Klal Yisrael, that's what you have to do for your children. You have to make them feel special. You have to make them feel that they can do anything and that they are the most wonderful people in the world. And that's what Ein Kol Choy means. It doesn't mean just she was the physical mother, the first mother, because otherwise Adam was the first father. No. Ein Kol Choy, life. She gave him life. She made him feel special. I had a mother like that. And I'll show you what she did. I spoke last night that my father died when I was 21. And I had to leave the yeshiva. I became a mohel. My father was a mohel. I'm a 5th generation mohel. And now I have a son that's the 6th generation mohel. But when I was 21, it was very difficult for many parents, to take me, because after all, I was brand new. I didn't have a lot of experience and I was very young. So, but my mother knew that I had to support the family. It was very difficult. So sometimes I would come home from school, from yeshiva, I'll come home from a bris, and I said to her, Mom, did I get any calls today? And she said 2 of the greatest words that I ever heard. You know what she said? Not yet. Now, she could have said no, because there were no calls. But that's not what she said. She said, not yet. You know what not yet meant? It didn't happen yet, but it's going to happen. You're going to be so busy one day, you won't even know what to do yourself first. But those 2 words were so special to me because it meant, I'm not blaming you. I know you're going to be busy. I have confidence in you. It didn't happen yet, but it's going to happen. And that's what a mother is. That's what Ein Kol Chai is all about. My mother believed that I could do anything. And you know something? When you have a mother that believes you could do anything, you know what happens? After a while, you believe it. And that's what the role of a mother is. That's what Ein Kol Chai is all about. You give your child life. You give your child confidence. You give your child encouragement. That's what it's not that she, of course, she would criticize me, every once in a while if I ever did anything wrong, which I never did, but whatever. But of course she criticized. But the point was, she was the Ein Kol Chai. And that's what we have to learn today. How does a person become that Ein Kol Chai? And I'll tell you something very interesting. I once had a bris, and Rabbi Hutner, who was a genius, he was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Chaim Berlin, and he said something, I'm going to find out something in a second from you, which I don't know yet, and let's see if it works, okay? He said, Rabbi Hutner, in every language except Hungarian, I don't know why, but in every language, the word for mother has the M sound. How do you say mother in Persian? Okay, so it's got mer, right? And how do you say it in French? Mère. And in Spanish, madre. And in Hebrew, ima. And in English, mother. Every language except Hungarian. I don't know what's doing in Chinese. But whatever. Every language has the M sound for mother. But by the father, it's different. The father is padre in Spanish. It's, Abba in Hebrew, daddy in English. There's no connection. How do you say father in Persian? Papa. Okay. But the point is that by the mother, the M is there. You know why? Because he said the word emunah. Emunah is trust and faith. And who's the one who teaches the child trust and faith in Hashem? That's the mother. So that's why in every language, the letter M for mother is there, because that's the connection of emunah. She's the one who teaches emunah. And I'll tell you something very interesting. I know all of you pray, and all of you will say Hallel many times, especially the holidays and Rosh Chodesh. So I want to show you something amazing. David HaMelech says to Hashem, Ana Hashem, Hashem, please help me. Ki ani avdecha, I am your servant. Who knows? What does it say? Ani avdecha ben amatecha. Because I had a mother that was your maidservant. And you know what Rabbi Miller said? It doesn't say her name. Why doesn't it say her name? He says, God, help me. You know why? Because I'm your servant. I had such a great mother, your maidservant. Why didn't he say her name? As a matter of fact, if anybody knows her name, I'll send you a few free CDs. I'm out of that. Would you give me your address? I'll tell you. Does anybody know her name? Most people don't know her name. What? Nama? No, that's a different name. That's Noach's wife. You know? Anybody know? It's not, okay, it's a Gemara Bava Basra. There's three people that most people don't know the names. The mothers. Avram Avinu's mother was Amaslai. Okay, nobody's named Amaslai, right? Okay, Amaslai Bas Karma. The mother of Shimshon, anybody know? The mother of Shimshon, a little girl says she doesn't know. Slavphonis. How would you like to have a name like Slavphonis? Okay? And the mother of David is Natzevet. Natzevet Bas Adael. Okay, I'm surprised, we don't have any Natzevet. But that was it. But you know what Rabbi Miller said? You know why her name is not mentioned? Because many times the mother's in the background. She's not front and center. The husband is out there front and center. Everybody knows who he is. But a great mother doesn't have to be front and center. The great mother is back there someplace in the house. And she's the one that's raising her children and giving them chizuk, making them feel beautiful, giving them encouragement. But nobody even knows who she is. But look at the children she had. Whoa, she had David HaMelech. That's why it says, Ani Avdecha, I am your servant Ben Amasecha. So now I want to show you something. I want to show you something very, very interesting. And you can look this up online. And there's a certain song that was written a number of years ago. And this little song, I'm not going to sing it for you, but I'm going to read it for you. And you'll be able to identify with it. You'll see it's so amazing. This is the song. My little boy came into the kitchen this evening while I was fixing supper. And he handed me a piece of paper he'd been writing on. So after wiping my hands on my apron, I read it. And this is what it said. For mowing the grass, $5. For making my bed this week, $1. For going to the store, 50 cents. For playing with baby brother while you went shopping, 25 cents. For taking out the trash, $1. For getting a good report card, $5. And for raking the yard, $2. Well, I looked at him standing there expectantly, and 1,000 memories flashed through my mind. So I picked up the paper, I turned it over, and this is what I wrote. For the 9 months that I carried you growing inside me, no charge. For the nights that I sat up with you, doctored you, and prayed for you, no charge. For the time and the tears, and the cost through the years, no charge. For the nights filled with dread, and the worries ahead, no charge. For advice and the knowledge, and the cost of your college, no charge. Here's my favorite. For the toys, food, and clothes, and wiping your nose, no charge. Son, when you add it all up, the full cost of my love is no charge. Well, when he finished reading, he had great big tears in his eyes. And he looked up at me and he said, Mama, I sure do love you. Then he took out his pen and in great big letters he wrote, paid in full. It's so beautiful and it's so true because we can never, ever pay back our mothers for what they did for us. Can I pay my mother? Could you pay your mother? It's impossible. And what do? We do that for our children. Could they ever pay us back? And that's one of the most important lessons of being a mother. Only Hashem can pay you back. No child. I once heard an expression. A mother can take care of 10 children, but even 10 children can't take care of one mother. Because we all know how special mothers are. Now I want to tell you, because my father died young, and my mother was an almanah. She was a widow for many, many years, 40 long years. And I had, Baruch Hashem, a wonderful wife. The furthest that we ever lived away from my mother was 2 blocks. And she was such a great daughter to my mother. And my mother and I, we would talk about everything. And you know what? Before Art Scroll came out, I don't know if you know this, but there was a company called Sansino. Did anybody ever see the small little red Gemaras? So this company, Sansino, they translated the entire Shas. And it was little books, little red, thick books, and it had every Gemara, Bava Kama, Bava Basra, Bava Metzia, Tainus, Sanhedrin, all of them. And my mother had it on her desk. I said, Mom, what are you doing? She said, I'm reading it, but, I'm not going to ask you any questions, and you don't ask me any questions. I said, Mom, why are you reading the Gemara? She said, no, I like to read about Rab Zera and Abaya, whatever I understand, I understand. So many times she would come up with stuff, and I said, Mom, where'd you get that from? And she would say, it's a Gemara. I said, Mom, what are you talking about? Now, this is the favorite thing that ever happened in this conversation. One day she says to me, an old lady is a gem in the house. An old man coughs. I said, Mom, what are you talking about? She said, yeah, it's a Gemara. I said, it's a Gemara that an old lady is a treasure and the old man coughs. And he's not worth much. Where'd you get that from? She said, I'm telling you, it's a Gemara. I said, Mom, where? She said, you find it. I'm not telling you. You know something? I found it. You're not going to believe what the Gemara says. The Gemara is in Enriching Yud Tes Amarach 19a in your Art Scroll Shas. Listen what it says. Saba bebesa, when there's an old grandfather in the house, pocha bebesa, it's a calamity. What does he do? He sits around, he does nothing, right? He coughs. He does nothing. It doesn't say coughs, but she added that. Sabta bebesa, when there's a bubby, a grandma in the house, sima bebesa, she's a treasure. You know what happens? What happens when your grandmother comes? In 5 minutes, she's got the apron on, she's in the kitchen, washing the dishes, taking the kids shopping, playing games, sitting on the floor. What does the old man do? He sits drinking coffee. That's amazing. So the truth is that when you think about it, I really don't know how all you guys do it. Because I was making a list of all the things you do. It's amazing. You're a nurse, you're a therapist, you're a cook, you're a waitress. Many of you are the breadwinners. You're a teacher, a wife, an advocate, a daughter, a seamstress. How do you manage? It's amazing. No man does what a woman does. They think they do, right? But look at all this. Which man does all these things? That's why the woman in Judaism is called Ein Kol Chai, the mother of all living beings, because she's the one who's running the house. She's the one who's bringing life into the house. She's the one who's bringing the spirit into the house. So I want to tell you something very interesting. A very interesting story in Tanakh that you will be surprised. But then you're going to learn a quality that all of you have that maybe you don't realize that you have. You see, during the first Beis HaMikdash, there was a Jewish king, and his name was Yoshiyahu HaMelech. Yeshayahu the king. Now, he was a very, very big tzaddik. And I'm going to tell you now something that happened during the first Beis Hamikdash. We can almost not imagine that such a thing could happen. What happened? The Beis Hamikdash was up for many, many years. And after a while, people stopped coming. They didn't go to pray anymore. They didn't bring karbanot. They didn't bring sacrifices. And you know what happens? What happens to a building that nobody shows up? First, the floor begins to buckle. Then the wallpaper and the walls peel, and the ceiling begins to fall in. And that's what was happening in the Beis Hamikdash. It's hard to believe. In the first Beis Hamikdash, because people stopped coming. If we would have the Beis Hamikdash today, every day, there would be special trips, the travel agents. Special trips, 3-day trips. Bring your carbon, to Yerushalayim. Everybody would be traveling. That's what I would think. So Yoshio said, you know something? We have to make sure that we have to fix up this place. Because it's not nice. I'm going to travel all around Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to inspire people. I'm going to make sure that people start coming back to the Beis Hamikdash. And that's what he did. Now, he had a secretary. The secretary's name was Shafan. And he said, Shafan, I want you to go to the Kohen. Chilkiyahu HaKohen. He's the Kohen Gadol. Tell him to start saving money. Because I'm telling you, I'm going to go around the whole country. I'm going to get people to start coming. I'm going to have to fix up the place. We need money. And I want you to take a Sefer Torah, a perfect Sefer Torah, so that when we come back to the Beis Hamikdash, we're going to have a Sefer Torah that's perfect. And that's what he did. And after a few years, Yoshio calls in his secretary, Shafan. He says, okay, now's the time. Go to Chilkiyahu HaKohen, tell him, people are starting to come, we got to fix up the place, he should give me the money that we saved. Fine, and bring the Sefer Torah. So now, Shafan goes to Chilkiyahu HaKohen, and he says, the king said, now we got to take the money and we got to start refixing the Beis Hamikdash, and we got to take the Sefer Torah. So they open up the Sefer Torah. Now, because of what I'm about to tell you, I believe with my whole heart that when any person gets an aliyah in the Torah, there's a message there. Unless you're a Kohen or a Levi, that they always get the first two, but every other person who gets an aliyah, why did he get Shlishi, Revi, Hamishi, Shishi, Shavi, Maftir? There's a reason, because God wants you to look into the words and learn something. There's a message for you. I believe that. So now they open up the Sefer Torah, and it says like this. Yolech Hashem oischo v'es malkocho. God is going to send you and the king out of Israel. There's going to come a time when they're going to be sent out of Israel. It's in Dvarim Kov Ches, Pasuk Lamed Vav. And they get so frightened. Wait, that's terrible. You mean we're not going to stay here forever? One day we're going to have to leave Eretz Yisrael? And Chilkiyahu says, we got to tell the message to the king. Yoshio, it's frightening. I'll give him the money, but look what happened when we opened the Sefer Torah. Yoshio says, you're right, we got to get somebody to pray. We got to get somebody to pray for us. So the Gemara tells us that Yirmiyahu Hanavi was alive. And everybody thought that Yoshio, the king, was going to go to the Navi. Yirmiyahu, the greatest Navi of the time. But that's not what he did. He went to a woman to die. Does anybody know, for a free Maggid book, what was the name of that woman that he asked should pray? Anybody know? Her name begins with a ches. Not Chana. Hulda. Who said that? Okay, those people. You give me your address, I'll send you a book. Okay, Hulda, don't forget to come up here, otherwise I won't know. Hulda, and the Gemara asks a question. Yoshio, how come he left Yirmiyah and he goes to the woman to daven? And the Gemara tells us something about all of you that you might not realize. And the Gemara says, Shahanoshim Rachmani Yosein, because the women have more compassion than the men. And the Mashal explains, what does it mean that they have more compassion? V'tavakesh rachamim l'shanot meirah l'tovah. You, not me. You, not Rabbi Shem Tov and Rabbi Chacham Zada and Rabbi Levi, although you can daven better that Hashem should change the Gzeirah from bad to good. Because women are more compassionate. How many of you have ever been at Kever Rachel? You ever see how people cry at Kever Rachel? Because that's the mama. That's the mama of Klal Yisrael. So of course, everybody, when they go to the mother, they cry because the mother's crying. Rachel Mavaka al Banea, the greatest people who daven are the women. That's why you went to Haggadah. And that's the first lesson that you have to know tonight, or this afternoon. You have to daven for your children every single day. Whether you daven in a siddur or you just stand in a corner and pray, because there's no guarantees. Today with the social media, today with the friends that the kids pick up on the bus, today with the friends that they can pick up in the school, today with what they can see on TV, wherever. There's so many terrible influences. Who's going to stop that influence? Is you. How? By tefillah. Now I want to tell you something. I pray Nusach Sfard. And you know why I pray in the Sfard Siddur? Not the Ashkenaz, because the Sfard has a lot of extra words. And I love davening the extra words, but there's 2 extra words that I love to daven. And that's every morning when I say Birchat HaTorah. And it says, V'niyeh anachnu v'tzetzoeinu, our children. And then in Sefard it says, Tzetzoeinu, our children's children, the grandchildren. I love davening for my grandchildren. And that's special. Every day we have to pray. Because there's no guarantees. I'm sure it's in Los Angeles that way. It certainly is in Lakewood and Monroe and in Williamsburg and Chicago, all over the place, in Baltimore, all over. You have some wonderful families and kids are going off the derech. How could that be? Because there's no guarantees. We've got to pray every day. Every day. And I'll tell you something amazing. You know, I remember one time I was in Israel, in Bnei Brak, and I went to visit Rabbi Michal Feinstein. Rabbi Michal Feinstein was one of the great rabbis, and his father-in-law was Rav Velvel Soloveitchik, who was the Gadol Hador, together with the Chazon Ish. At the time of the Chazon Ish, Rav Velvel Soloveitchik was one of the Gadolei Hador. Rabbi Michal Feinstein was his son-in-law. So when I was talking to Rabbi Michal Feinstein, all of a sudden his wife walked in, Livsha. Wow, she's the daughter of Rav Velvel Soloveitchik. Imagine like the daughter of the Chavetz Chaim walking into this room. I couldn't believe it. So I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity. When would I ever see her again? So I said to her, my son was there, my daughter-in-law was there, and I said, Rebbetzin, please tell me something that I could tell parents about raising children. Tell me something from your great father, Rav Velvel Soloveitchik. Please tell me that I could tell parents. She thinks for a moment, and she says, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story that happened in Brisk, in the town where I grew up. She said, one night, there was a big political meeting. Now, I do not know the difference in Zionist politics between Jabotinsky and Ben-Gurion. For whatever, they both had different ideas. And they both had different people that defended their ideas. She said, one night in Brisk, there was a political meeting, and the Jabotinsky people were on one side, and the Ben-Gurion people were on the other side, and they were arguing. They were arguing about Israeli politics. And all of a sudden, one brother from the Jabotinsky side got up and he started speaking, and another brother from the Ben-Gurion side got up, he started speaking, and they got into an argument in front of everybody, and they got into a fist fight. Up front here, 2 brothers are knocking each other's brains out. Of course, everybody ran up and broke up the fight, and the whole meeting was slaughtered and finished. She said that night, I was sitting with my brothers and sisters, we were sitting, eating dinner with my father, and somebody comes running inside and says, Rabbi, did you hear what happened? 2 brothers got up and they made Chilul Hashem. 2 brothers got up, they were fighting against each other. That's terrible. Your children would never do that. How did you have such good children? Your children would never make such a Chilul Hashem. So Rebbetzin Lifsha said to me, my father, for some reason, didn't want to answer that person. He just shrugged his shoulders. But as soon as he left, my father turned to all of us and he said these words. Now he said it in Yiddish. Now I understand you don't understand Yiddish. I'll just tell it to you in English. He said, what they don't realize is how many tears I shed, how much Tehillim I said, how many days I fasted, how many sleepless nights I gave up to have such wonderful children. Again, what they don't realize is how many tears I shed, how much Tehillim I said, how many days I fasted, how many sleepless nights I gave up to have such children. Now, if the great Ravel Soloveitchik is crying for his children, what should we say? Of course we have to cry for our children, because there's no guarantees, especially in the big cities in America, where you have so many attractions, and you have so many things, you know them as well as I do. And our kids know them 10 times better than we do, right? You want your computer fixed? What do? You go with your kid, right? Anybody who's below 20 knows more than you know. It's unbelievable. Sometimes I'm on a plane and I can't get my computer to work. So in a panic, it's before the plane left, I call my wife and said, Mim, what am I supposed to do? She said, look around. Is anybody below 20 near you? Call them. That's what happened. I remember it was on an Amtrak train. I was going to Baltimore. And sure enough, there was this guy who was sitting right in front of me. I was so embarrassed to talk to him. I said, excuse me, it's a 2.5 hour ride to Baltimore. Can you fix this? Yeah, sure. I still don't know what he did, but it worked. But the point is, we got to pray. We have to cry. We have to say Tehillim. It's not a question of what school your kid gets into. You got to say Tehillim. That's what you got to do. That's how the kid is going to get into a school. So many schools today, they don't want to take our children. There's no room. He's not smart enough. He's not good enough. All kinds of terrible, terrible excuses. And those principles and those people, I'm telling it on video, which is going to go all around the whole world through TorahAnytime.com. Those principles are going to suffer in the next world because they don't take in those children. And they make parents feel awful when they're good kids. Take them. Give them a chance. How did you get there where you got? Were you so great when you were such a child? Who are you kidding? We all know that in years ago they would take in. If a kid was in the neighborhood, you took him in, you worked with him. Today they don't do that. How are we going to get the kid in? We have to pray, we have to cry, we have to say Tehillim. It's terrible. Otherwise these kids are suffering. And if there are Velvel Soloveitchik's child, Livsha is telling us that that's what his father did, that's what we got to do. Here's another story that I think is so important. And this is also in Tanakh. And this story happened with Shmuel. We all know Shmuel HaNavi. And he went to Shaul. He went to the Jewish king. And he said to the Jewish king, listen, God wants you to kill out Amalek. The men, the women, the children, the animals, everything. What happens? He only kills out the men. He doesn't kill out the women and the children and the animals. And a couple of days later, Shmuel comes over to Shaul HaMelech. He said, what happened? I told you what God told you to do. Why didn't you do it? So Shaul says, oh, Chotosi, I'm so sorry. Ki avarti es pi Hashem. I violated the word of God. Ve'ez devarech on what you told me. Ki yoresi es ha'om. I was afraid of the people. The people said, don't kill them. Don't kill the women and the children. And we'll bring karbanot, we'll bring sacrifices for the animals. Don't kill the animals. Now listen to what Shmuel says to Shaul. And this is what I want to say to every single mother. You know what Shmuel said to Shaul? He said, even though you're small in your eyes, you're humble. But Roy Shifte Yisrael, you're the head of Klal Yisrael. Hashem made you a king. Every mother here has to remember you're the queen of the house. You can't be afraid of your kids. Many times we're afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to say no. You're the mother. Many times we're humble because we think, oh, my mother, oh, she was a mother. Or my father, oh, he was a father, right? I I remember when my wife and I were first starting to have kids, one night I woke up, I looked at her, I take a look, I said, she's a mother? That's a joke. I'm a father? My father was a father. Me? It's a joke, right? And we're really humble, we really mean it, because our fathers were fathers, our mothers were mothers. But us, it's a joke. No, it's not a joke, you know why? Because to your kids, you are that mother. And to your kids, that your husband is that father. And that's how we have to look at it. You cannot be afraid. You have to realize if Hashem blessed you with children and grandchildren, you are a queen. And they have to listen to the queen. Not that the queen has to listen to the kids. You can't be afraid of your kids. And if your kid says to you, Ma, why do I have to wear a helmet when I'm wearing a bike? You know, I'm a nerd. None of my friends are wearing, you know, you should tell them. Because maybe the other mothers, they don't love the kids as much as I love you. So that's why I want you to wear the helmet. Ma, why do I get to be home by 11:30 Saturday night? My other friends can be out till 2. Well, because maybe the other mothers, they don't care about their kids the way I care about you. And when you set this standards, deep down, the kids respect you. Because they know that you're right. And we cannot be afraid of our children. Of course, there are things that you have to allow them to do. There's no question about that. But you can't be afraid of the kids. Now, I'll tell you something very interesting. I remember my father, alav shalom, before Hanukkah, you know, he would go out to a store and he would, you know, buy his presents for Hanukkah. So as I told you before, I'm one of 7 kids. And my father, one time, he went Erev Hanukkah, you know, he left it to the last minute. And he went into this big toy store in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, with so many toys hanging from the ceilings and the walls or whatever. Wasn't the most organized place in the world. And he said to the guy behind the counter, I just don't know what to give my kids. Like, how do you choose here? So the guy behind the counter said something so amazing to my father. He said, I'll tell you the best thing that you could give your kids. He said, what is that? He said, time. My father came home, he wanted to give us time. We weren't interested in time, we wanted presents, right? But he did give us presents. But I want to tell you something about time. You know, I remember I once went to Rabbi Volba. Rabbi Volba was a great tzaddik, and he wrote a wonderful, wonderful book. You should all get it. It's a thin book. I just saw it in Rabbi Summer's house, but I know that book backwards and forwards. It's called Planting and Building, Raising a Jewish Child. You must get that book. Planting and Building, Raising a Jewish Child. And I once went to Rabbi Volba and I said, tell me, I always ask the great people this, what should I tell parents when I speak to them? He said, tell every parent there's 2 things you got to give your kids. Time and love. So when I was there by Rav Volba, my son was with me, and he asked, and I wrote this in the Haggadah, by the way, he asked, how much time do we have to give our kids? And you know what Rav Volba said? As much as they need. And that's the answer. People always ask me, this week you're in Los Angeles, last week you were in Tom's River, next week you're in Chile, then you're in Mexico. Well, like, how do you do all this stuff? You know what the answer is? All my kids are married. Otherwise, you got to be crazy to do this kind of stuff. You and your husband can't be out every night. That's terrible. The children need you. And I'll tell you what I did. I have 5 children. Every week, and this is what you have to do. Either you or your husband. 25 to 30 minutes undivided attention with each child. Every night a different child. You want to go bowling? We'll go bowling. You want to learn Ezra? We'll learn Ezra. You want to do exercise? You want to go for a walk? Whatever you want. No cell phones. Just me and you. Whatever you want. Think about this. You don't have to raise your hands. When was the last time you had a real conversation with your child? Not, what'd you get on the test? Oh, you got 95. What'd you get wrong? How come you forgot your lunch? You know? Well, how was school? Okay. Oh, good. Fine. That's not a conversation. Today, nobody has conversations. Everybody's texting on WhatsApp. We forgot how to talk. But you got to talk to your kids. Take the kids out of the house and go for a walk with them. If you don't know your daughter's 3 best friends, the names, or her 3 favorite colors, you got homework to do. And if your husband doesn't know which Gemara, the name of the Gemara, I'm not talking about knowing the Gemara itself, the name of the Gemara, that he doesn't know what name, or he doesn't know the Rebbe's name, he's got homework to do. And that's what you got to do. Now I want to tell you something. I didn't write this in the Haggadah. It took all my self-control. But because it's too sad, as you'll see in a second. And there are too many kids that would be affected by it. They would start crying at the Seder if they read this story. But you got to hear the story. I have a friend who's a psychologist. I don't know why all my friends are psychologists and therapists. It's a problem with me, but whatever. But anyway, so this guy, his name is Mayor Wicklow, Dr. Mayor Wicklow. So he told me that one time he had a 22-year-old girl in his office. And she had a lot of different problems or whatever. And this was now the third visit that she was with him. And he tells me, every time he tells me the story, he says, I want you to know I still do not understand why I asked her this question. I said, you're a therapist, you should know. What are you asking me? He said to the girl, he said, you know, this is the third time you're in this office. Not once did you mention your father. Maybe you want to talk to me about your father? The second he said it, she burst out crying and he felt so terrible. He felt so terrible that he asked her this question. And he said to her, I'm so sorry I brought it up. Please, just, get hold of yourself. You don't have to talk to me about your father if you don't want to. Finally, she stopped crying. And he said, we could change the topic. She said, no, I want to tell you something. She said, as soon as you mentioned my father, I remembered a story that happened the night of the Seder, the night of Passover, the night of Pesach. She said, I took the afikoman, and my father knew that I had the afikoman. And at the end of the Seder, he came over to me. He said, I know you have the afikoman. What do you want for the afikoman? And I told him, a conversation. Isn't that to cry? That's what she wanted. A conversation. She wanted time. And I'm telling you, I know that there's so many families that are going to be sitting at a Seder without a father or without a mother, either divorced or orphaned or whatever. It's too painful to write that in Haggadah. Because a lot of kids are missing that connection to their parents. And think about that. When was the last time you had a conversation? That's what they need. They want you to be their mentor. They want you to be their role model. And that's what's so important. And I'll tell you another story that Dr. Wicklow taught me. Also, not easy to listen to. And again, I wouldn't write this. I wouldn't write it because it's too painful, but we got to hear it. That's what we came here for today. To improve, to elevate ourselves. He told me that there was a couple that had a terrible divorce. And now the way it worked was in the middle of the week, the boy stayed by the mother, and Shabbat, he stayed by his father. One Tuesday night, the kid is about to go to sleep, he starts crying. The mom says, why are you crying? I want to be by my daddy. She said, what do you mean you want to be by your daddy? Shabbat, you're by your daddy. With me, you're the whole, no, I want to be by my daddy. And she can't control him, he's crying. So she calls her ex, who didn't live far away. He said, he's crying. Maybe you could come pick him up. He wants to be by you tonight. He says, okay, I'll pick him up. He comes, he picks up the little boy. He brings him to his house. And he starts putting him to sleep. And the kid starts crying. He said, why are you crying? I want my mommy. What do you mean you want your mommy? You said you want me, right? That's why I came to pick you up. No, I want my mommy. And he's crying, and if she couldn't control him, he surely can't control him, right? He calls her back, he says, you want the kid back? He wants to be by you again. She says, yeah, of course. So he drives the kid back, and he's about to leave the house, and the kid stands on the door. Daddy, don't leave. Daddy, don't leave. He says, I can't be here. No, Daddy, I want you to be here tonight. He says, no, I can't. And of course, the father leaves, and the kid cries himself to sleep. Listen to this. The next morning, this lady calls Dr. Wicklow, and she tells him the whole story. And then at the end, she says, Dr. Wicklow, I want to ask you a question. You think my child needs therapy? You know what Dr. Wicklow said? Your child doesn't need therapy. He needs parents. That's what he needs. And that's why each one of us that has a spouse We have to know that the husband has a job to do and the wife has a job to do. Hashem gave you children. That's the biggest blessing in the world. No job is as important. Nothing is as important as the future of Klal Yisrael. And that's what we're talking about here today. Now, if you want to know what your kids think of you, I'll tell you in a second how to find out. Now, I don't know, you might be afraid to do this, but I'll tell you what you should do. Ask the kids when you come home, could you draw a picture of me? Ask your kids to draw a picture of them. Now, if they draw a picture of you in an office by a computer, you're in trouble. If they draw a picture of you on a plane traveling, you're in trouble. If they draw a picture of you in the house playing with the other kids, that's good. So I want to tell you what I did. I saw this idea in a magazine, a Jewish magazine, and I went over to 5 women. I said to 5 women, I said, listen, would you be willing to do this? If you don't want to do it, I'll get somebody else. But I need you to have your children draw a picture of you. Would you do it? So each of the 5 women said yes, and they told me what. So I want to tell you. One child had her mother cleaning strawberries. Okay, make sure there's no bugs. Another one had her child, another child had her mother watching Little League. In New York, it's called Yidel League. You know, they play Little League and baseball, so the mother was watching the kids play baseball. Another one had the mother baking latkes, and the other one made a picture of how the mother is telling a story, a bedtime story to one of the kids. Here's the 5th one. It's my favorite. I have no idea what it means, but it's my favorite. And this little girl drew a picture of her and her mother climbing up a rainbow. I don't know what it means, but it's delicious. And can I tell you a little secret? These 5 women are my daughters and daughter-in-law. And I was so proud of every single one of them. Isn't that amazing? Now look at that picture of that little girl with her mommy right there. That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about. And that's the connection. That's what we need. Hashem gave you the greatest gift in the world. Children and grandchildren. And you know something? Today, grandmothers are so young. Last year, my wife went ice skating with my granddaughter. Now, my bubby didn't even know what an ice skate was. And I want to tell you something. Hashem has blessed me. I don't know what I look like to you, but I'm a great-grandfather. You know what that means? When I was growing up, I thought Avraham Avinu, Rachel Amena was a great-grandmother. Who ever heard of a great-grandfather, a great-grandmother? When we were growing up, most of us didn't even have grandparents. But today, everybody's living longer. Baruch Hashem, that's great. And if that's the case, we have to take advantage of it. And we can mold, and we can help, and we can shape the future of the kids. That's really what it's all about. And then you want to travel, so fine. You take 2 types of vacations. One with the kids, and one without the kids. Of course, every husband and wife have to have time alone. It's very important. But every husband and wife should take a vacation together with the kids. That's when you bond with them. That's when you teach them. That's when they see what you're all about. And you got to be home at night. Don't let your husbands be out every single night. I don't care what the reason is. Because kids need validation. They need parents. That's most important. I'll tell you one more thing, and then we'll end with a fabulous, fabulous story. My wife once saw a great expression. She showed it to me. It was on a poster. There's 2 things you got to give your kids: roots and wings. Roots and wings. In other words, we have to show our children that we're part of a great nation. That's the roots. Especially on the holidays, Purim, Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah. We show them the roots that we come from: Shabbat, Zemirot, community. Those are roots. But you got to give them wings. You have to allow them to grow. Now, I have a son. I don't know if any of you have ever watched me on TorahAnytime.com, but I have two sons, Baruch Hashem. They're both also on TorahAnytime.com. One is Avram, the other is Eliezer. So Eliezer today is writing a book for halachot for women. It's going to be published by Yachad Kollel. Zat Hashem, I hope you'll get it. But the idea is, he once said, amazing. You know what the turning point in his life was? He was 18 years old, and he was in the Beit Midrash, and it was like winter vacation. And a whole bunch of guys were going to go skiing, or they were going to go, I don't know, someplace to the Poconos. And those guys, each one had access to a car. And my wife called in my son Eliezer, and she said to him, I only want you to drive. You're the one that I trust. And he could not believe it, because most mothers are afraid that the kids should be the ones that are driving everybody else. But he said, my mother trusted me. And she trusted me not only with my life, but with the life of all my friends, because she trusted me more than she trusted anybody else. And that gave me such a feeling of confidence. You know, that's what wings are. You can let your child make a mistake. You know, there's some mothers, if they tell the child, take the milk from the table to the refrigerator, as the child is walking, say, don't spill the milk. Why did you say that? Because you're the mother? You know what the kid thinks? I must be such a schlump. You know what schlump is. I don't even know if it's a Persian word. It's whatever. I must be such a failure that my mother has to tell me I'm not going to spill the milk from here to the refrigerator. Don't be a parent for the sake of being a parent. Encourage your child. Build your child. Compliment your child. Your child does something good. You come home, all the kids are playing nicely. Stop and say, I'm so proud of all of you. You're playing so nicely. Instead of just walking by with, thank God, the kids are not killing each other. Right? That's what most of us would do, right? No. Give them compliments. And I want to tell you something. It's not easy for me to tell you this, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. I have 5 children. So one of my daughters, Faggy, fabulous, fabulous parent. She's the head of the math department in the high school in Baltimore, the basic school in Baltimore. So she once told me that when she comes home from school, she leaves her attaché case in the car. I said, why do you do that? She says, so when I come home, I've got both hands to hug my kids. And for the next 2 hours, I'm not even thinking about the schoolwork. I bring it in after supper, because those 2 hours when I first come home, I want to be able to talk to the kids, and I want them to know that I am there for them all the time. So I just want to tell you something interesting. She's married to a fabulous guy, Hananya Kramer. He does all the videos. He did the videos for the Sima Shas and for art school. He's wonderful. But for whatever reason, she, among my 5 children, had the hardest time finding a shidduch. And you know how it is when you have a child that's in shidduchim. After a while, you get frustrated, and she gets frustrated. You blame her, she blames you, back and forth. And you probably say things to each other that you shouldn't have said, or whatever. So one day, I must have said something that I felt terrible that I said. And I went to her room and I said, Faggy, you know, I apologize. I shouldn't have said before what I said, but you know that I love you. She said, of course I know you love me. I said, how do you know that I love you? She said, you know how many times you told me that you're a millionaire because I'm your daughter? And you know how many times I told her? Probably 1,000. When was the last time you told your child that you're a millionaire because they're your child? That makes an impression. So sometimes when you have to criticize them afterwards, they're not angry. They know, they feel that that's the right thing, that you feel that that's the right thing, but it doesn't take away from the love. You're a millionaire. Today already, they call me a billionaire. Because I have grandchildren, right? But the point is, there's nothing more important than your family. No friend of yours is important as your family. You know why? Because one day you might not even be living here in Los Angeles. Chas v'shalom, right? You might end up in Toronto where it's freezing, right? Or in New York, right? Or someplace, I don't know. You don't stay forever with your friends, and I'll show you a proof. Think about it. When you were in high school, didn't you think that best friend in high school, you were never, ever going to part from her, ever. Today, you don't even know where she lives. You don't even know her telephone number, right? The only thing that's permanent is family. And if that's the case, we have to make the most of it. That's what this talk is all about. The noble role of Jewish mothers is to understand that Hashem blessed you and gave you the greatest obligation and the greatest responsibility with the greatest love of all. So let's review everything that we said. I gotta tell you one more story then before we review, okay? Because it's such a great story. You know, the Gemara says that women have Bina Yeseda, right? They have special wisdom. So I want to tell you also a story. I wrote this by Hadlakat Nerot in the Haggadah because I love this story. It shows you how smart a woman could be, like all of you. Listen to this. This woman, her name was Mrs. Bernfeld. She lived in Czechoslovakia during the Second World War, and she had a son, Meir, who was 22. And she was afraid he's going to end up in a concentration camp or in the Czechoslovakian army. He would lose all his religion. So she had to get him out of Czechoslovakia. But England wasn't taking anybody anymore. Israel wasn't, and America and Canada, all these places, you couldn't get a visa. So now there were only 5 Spanish countries that were taking people. Bolivia, Uruguay, Chile, Brazil, and Paraguay. Right? Where's she going to send it? She doesn't know anybody any place over there. Listen to what a smart Jewish woman thinks of. She takes out her Siddur. Her Siddur was printed in New York by Schulzinger. That was the name of the company in the 1940s that was printing Siddurim. She writes the owner a letter. And she says, could you tell me, between Bolivia, Uruguay, Chile, Brazil, and Paraguay, where do you sell the most Siddurim? Wow. Imagine that. And they told her, in Paraguay, in Montevideo, in Uruguay. And that's where she sent her kid. She got him a visa. He said, Ma, where am I going? She said, you're going to the bookseller. Ma, he doesn't even know me. He'll take care of you, don't worry. Tell him I told you. And you know something? That's what she did. And she sent him to the place where they sell the most Siddurim. That's the most Jews there. And today, all her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are all religious. Because it's a Jewish woman that has Bina Yesera, that has that extra wisdom. So let's review quickly what we said, and we'll end with the fabulous story. Let's remember Aleph Tov, in the Haggadah, Basheni Yodei Lishol, because it's that woman, she's the one that spends the time with the child more than anything else. Let's remember those 2 beautiful words that my mother said to me. Not yet. Because a mother, she's the Em Kol Chai. Em Kol Chai doesn't just mean that she's the mother of all life, but she's the one that gives encouragement and beautifies and builds the child. Let's remember what Rabbi Miller pointed out. Rabbi Miller said, Ani Avdecha, Ona Hashem ki Ani Avdecha, Ani Avdecha ben Amosecha. Doesn't say even what her name was. Let's remember that beautiful song about no charge. You're never going to get paid. Don't even expect it. Hashem will pay you. But no child can ever pay back what a mother does. Let's remember, like Yeshua HaMelech, it's you, the women, who can make sure that Hashem will change the Gezerah from bad to good, like Chulda. Let's remember what Rebbetzin Lifshitz told us about her father. How many tears he shed, how many days he fasted, how many Tilim he said, how many sleepless nights he gave up to be able to have such wonderful children. Let's remember what Shmuel HaNavi said to Shaul HaMelech, you're the king. And I say to all of you, you're the queen of the house. Don't be afraid to say no to your children. Let's remember what Rav Bolba told us. There's 2 things that you've got to give to your children. Time and love. How much time? As much as they need. Have a conversation with them. And finally, as we said, to spend time with your children, give them roots, give them wings, allow them to make a mistake, but give them encouragement. That's for sure. Always to compliment. So I just want to end with this fabulous story that will teach us a great lesson. During the Vietnam War, which wasn't that long ago, America lost almost 40,000 soldiers. It was a terrible, terrible catastrophe. And in that war, there was a Navy fighter pilot. You could look it up. His name was Charlie Plumb, P-L-U-M-B. And he was on the Kitty Hawk, which was a huge warship. And he would take off every day in his Navy fighter pilot plane, and he would bomb the enemy territory. He had to do 75 missions. He did 74 perfectly. And in the 75th, he was shot down. He was shot down. But he had a parachute, the plane exploded, and he ended up in enemy territory, and he was in prison for 5 years. And every day they tortured him because they figured he's a Navy fighter pilot. He probably, no secrets. After 5 years, he came back to America. He went to rehabilitation, and he became a public speaker. He traveled all over America speaking. One night he was in Kansas City. After the speech, he was sitting alone in a corner in a restaurant, and all of a sudden somebody came over to him. He never saw this guy. And this young man says, "Excuse me, sir, are you Charlie Plum?" He says, "How do you know who I am?" He says, "You were on the Kitty Hawk, right? And you flew 74 missions, and the 75th, the parachute saved your life." Charlie Plum stood up. He said, "Young man, who are you? How do you know all this about me?" He said, "Because I was a sailor on the Kitty Hawk, and I built your parachute. I packed your parachute." He said, "I can't believe it." He said, I never thought I would meet you. I wanted to thank you and your family. Only because of you, I'm alive. I don't know what to say to you." He said, "Well, the parachute worked, didn't it?" He said, "You bet it did." And they get into a whole conversation, and he sees that this guy was really a sailor, and that was his job, packing the parachutes. And they get into a wonderful conversation. They're reminiscing, they're remembering everything that happened during the war. And then the sailor left. He was already out of the Navy, and he went back home where he lived in Kansas City. And afterwards, Charlie Plum writes, you can see it online. He says, "I felt so terrible." He says, "You know why I felt terrible? Because I bet that I saw that sailor many times on the Kitty Hawk. Not once did I go over to him to say thank you. Not once did I say hello, because I was a Navy fighter pilot, and he was only a little sailor. He wasn't as important as me." He said, "But there's a lot of people that pack your parachutes in life, and we don't thank them." When was the last time you thanked your mother? When was the last time you thanked your teacher? When was the last time you thanked your mora or your friend who was there when you needed it most? We forget about all these people that pack our parachutes. And maybe that's a natural thing, but it's not the right thing. But I want to tell you something. Every single one of you here packs the parachutes of the future of Klal Yisrael. And your children are not going to thank you for packing their parachutes. Hashem is going to thank you. That's really what it's all about. Hashem should bless every single one of you, that you should continue packing the parachutes for the future of Klal Yisrael, your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and you should all see nachas and mazel and bracha, and we should see refuah shlema, yeshuot v'nechamot. I can't thank you enough for inviting me. I thank you for listening. Hashem should bless all of you.